Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
Schlechter George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
We continue our coverage of Last Argument of Kings, the third book in the original trilogy. And for this episode, we'll be covering Picked Up a Shadow, Questions, and the Fourth Day. So, let's get started. As usual, got to thank you all for your continued support, right? A round of applause, everybody.
Yay!
Oh, yeah.
We learned that the sound effects that we were messing around with last episode didn't make it to the recording. So,
Oh, that's hilarious.
yeah. So, if George, you did a good job of editing that out, though.
Yeah.
Okay,
There was a full 20 minutes of us just laughing at sound effects that I had to cut out of that. So
Awesome.
apologize if the last episode was a little bit choppy.
Yeah, sorry.
They were pretty great at the time.
Yeah, we enjoyed it.
We enjoyed it great, and it just took a really long time to edit this week.
Poor Georgie. But yeah, we want to thank for anyone that's been supporting us and following us. All right, so we'll just go ahead and move on to our first chapter read through if no one else has anything to say. We start off with Picked Up a Shadow, and we return to the point of view of Pharaoh Maljin, the bane of Yulway's existence and Bias. And she's chilling on the roof of a warehouse in the docks, and she's just keeping an eye out for the boats. She's expecting Yulway to come back. She's tired of Bias. She wants to go back home because Yulway said that Bias would give her vengeance, and Bias has not given her vengeance. She's just fed up with all these wizards and magi and all that. And she started thinking about Giselle Dan Luthar, which was like, can't believe that he became the king. Oh, Nine Fingers would be cracking up right now if he could see that, and then made her a little sad to think of Logan. So she was like, no, I can't think of him. I'm sad. And I don't want to be sad. I want to be mad.
You guys have done this before, though, right? Like, whenever something happens and it reminds you of somebody, and then you realize that you don't have that same relationship with that person anymore, and you're like, no, I can't think about them. It makes me weak.
Yeah, absolutely.
I bet their lives suck. You have to, you go from, being kind of sad about it to just being full-blown angry at them for no reason.
For no reason. And we know Pharaoh loves to be angry, so... So she had been coming down to the docks for multiple days now in a row, just watching the docks to see if Yulway disembarks off a ship. One of the first days that she went down to the docks, one of the workers down there thought it was a good idea to say, "Come down here, my lovely, and give me a kiss." And then Pharaoh proceeded to throw half of a brick at his head. And he went down into the water, and then they had to fish him out, and no one said anything to her after that. So
well done, Pharaoh. Well done.
Yeah, fuck those men.
Yeah, that's one way to combat catcalling. That's one way.
That's what everyone should do. Get violent. That'll fix things.
Yeah, exactly. So then after some time, she realized Yulway's not coming today, so she starts, she gets off the roof, starts walking back to wherever her place of residence is. And she's noticing that she's actually being followed. She's like, who is this man? She's taking care to not give up, to make it obvious that she knows. But she was able to catch a glimpse of him. And from the description, we know it's Severard. Because we also know that Glockta had told him to follow her. And she's like, gotcha. And so, she does like a little thing where she leads him down an alley, hides behind a corner, and hears him carefully walking down the alleyway. And as he turns the corner, her fist is already sailing and making contact with his face. She's on his ass. And
I love how elated she is as well. She's just like, oh, this is great.
Yeah, I get to beat a motherfucker. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's super excited about this. And beats the shit out of him, takes his knife, and basically has it to his throat. And then she goes, "Why are you following me?" And then he does we'll talk about this a little bit more in this episode. But she has this this technique where if she asks you a question right away and you don't answer right away, you kind of deflect. She doesn't even let you get through your deflection. She's already beating the shit out of you.
I like that Pharaoh's style. She did this in the first book too, just with the whole like ending scene with the bloody nine chase scene and all that.
Mhm.
And we'll see it here in a chapter or two, where her natural like affinity towards violence in a place like Adua is so like off-putting that it makes it to where everyone's at her whim because no one's expecting. Everyone's expecting like some kind of espionage or maybe some backstabbing or poison or something like that, and she just comes out full blown hitting people, and everyone's like, "Whoa, I didn't know we did that anymore
Yeah,
here."
she's right in your face. Yep, you're right about that.
Even with the practicals, because the practicals are meant to be like these fearsome, like
Enforcers.
intimidating guys, but most of the time they just kind of stand around with their sticks and.
Yeah, with the billy club. Yeah, and so as she's questioning Severard, and Severard at some point he's just like, listen, I'm not making the orders. I'm just following orders. And then she's like, who? Give me a name, motherfucker. And then he's just like, Glockto. I want And then she's like, okay.
Well, he doesn't give Glock up straight away, does he? He has to be threatened with emasculation first.
Yeah, right. Because she goes, what, you think I never cut off a cock before?
Yeah.
The most terrifying shit.
Yeah, it's like, oh god, it's Glockta.
He's a little bit loyal, at least.
Yeah, of course. And then she has a knife ready just to get it done because, don't leave witnesses. But then she puts the onus on him. She's like, give me a reason to not to do it. And then he says, my birds.
But
Pharaoh's confused. She's like, birds? The fuck?
There'll be no one to feed them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he says that he deserves it, sure enough, but that his birds have done nothing. And this gets to Pharaoh because it reminds her of her dad, I guess, when they were younger. He would keep birds. So she goes, she doesn't even say anything. She just says, fine, and just like leaves. Yeah. Like that snake from the Jungle Book, just. That's all I always. Every time I see this, her hissing, I just think of that. You guys did not see or read the Jungle Book, did you?
I've seen the older one. Is that the one?
Very long time, Jeffrey.
Oh my god! All right, I'm tired of my age showing and these goddamn references. Anyway, that's the end of that chapter. It was a very short chapter. She learns that Severard is, being told to follow her vis-a-vis Glockta of the Inquisition. Well, I guess she knows that the practicals are from the Inquisition because of when her and Logan ran into them in the blade itself. So
Right, yeah.
yeah, end of that chapter. Short. What do you guys think?
I'm gonna go for 5. I'm gonna go for average because we haven't seen Pharaoh in a while.
Yeah.
And after all of this sort of, all the bureaucracy with Giselle and the heartbreak and the hard fighting and stuff, and it's just Pharaoh beating the shit out of some dudes.
Love it. Gotta love it.
Comedic value is just 100%.
Harrison?
I think I agree with you, and I like that there is a little bit of like showing how it's not just the fact that she finds out somebody's following her. It's also like she's like looking for reasons not to kill people rather than looking for reasons to kill people. And that's a nice little like showing of like she hasn't lost that part of herself yet, like where she's she's starting to think about that, but at the same time it's extremely short, and you almost don't need this chapter in the book. So I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 9 personally.
Okay. Well, I like it. I'll give it a 4 and a knuckle. I like it for the comedic value. I do like the little bit of growth that we see at her time with our Fellowship of the Seed or whatever. It has softened her a bit, and that's why you see her kind of. She's putting like roadblocks in front of herself in terms of like killing people, whereas Blade itself, Pharaoh, she's out here shanking Severard if this was the case. You know what I mean? It ain't no.
She wouldn't even thought twice. She'd just been like, all right.
You're following me. You must die.
She's like, what's your boss's name? Glockta. All right, take that. So
take that.
yeah. So 4 and a knuckle for me. Short but funny. because we find violence funny apparently here at the Circle of the World podcast.
Yay! Wait, I mean,
Boo. Okay. All right. So let's move on to our next segment, which is best meme of the week. Georgie, take it away.
So it's Tamal Bor. It's been a bit of a quiet time on House of the Meme Maker lately. Probably because so Spaceman has offered to take a little bit of a break before he starts the meme in every chapter for Best Served Cold. So it's been a little bit slow lately, but Tamal Bor's got a cracker here, and it's at Costco whenever he runs into a former employer, and it's Larry David from Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like, so this is me apologizing. It's about as sorry as I can get.
That's a good one. I like that.
That's very good. Very true.
Congratulations to ML Bor. Is he setting records? He's setting records here, right?
He's definitely over half of the 56 memes of the week.
Damn. No, this is
That's crazy.
That's wild.
We're gonna have to give him a trophy.
We should give a little.
We'll send him edible arrangements. That's what we'll do.
A Hello Fresh box. I was gonna say, we're not doing a community interaction segment this week, but I did want to point out, I'm not sure did you guys all see the art that somebody created for the Buddy 9, since we're kind of getting into these battles up in the high places?
I did not see the art. No,
I didn't know.
Let me
care to enlighten us.
I shall, my lord. There's also a really good arty one that is like nice. So both of them are.
You know what that means. You know what that means. That means that's fapping material right there. That's what that means.
Well, I just sent it over to you.
Let me see.
So I just go check out.
It's well done. It's well done. Okay.
Reddit is been popping off lately, and it's
lovely that.
There has been an immense amount of fan casts on Reddit, and there's been an immense amount of discussion, but there's also some interesting discussions and artwork and things like that coming out from new people coming on board and people coming back for maybe, hearing about the movie or, just rereading and stuff. So it's just kind of it's a good time to jump on the Reddit and check it out. So.
Okay. Yeah, I see it. I don't think this is the Battle of the High Places.
It is. It's the gate.
Dude, the gate is like 2 doors of wood. That doesn't have a portcullis or whatever it's called.
Does it matter?
Yeah. All right. George, I don't know about you, but I think our Adeptus has not been adhering to the fucking whatever. He's not been doing his job.
I put all of my lore effort into the fucking YouTube videos. Okay, you can fuck off, old man.
Jesus, our young son is getting a little rebellious. I need to put this revolt down before he actually gets some strong.
You're like, I'm gonna have to deal with this myself.
Yeah, I'm gonna drive down to Tulsa my goddamn self and spank that ass, boy.
That has a different kind of implication on it there, Jeff.
It'll mean whatever you want it to mean. Keep it up. Anyway, so you want to talk some more about the art? Yeah, move on.
They're just good. They're just good artwork, and Reddit's been very active lately. And so it's if you haven't been on it for a little while, there might be some things you're interested in or conversations you want to look at. Because I know for a while there it was all just fan cast or just kind of quiet because there were no news about anything. So just hop on there and check it out.
Yeah, check it out, everybody. Well, thank you for that meme of the week, George, and thank you, Harrison, for that little, tidbit about the Reddit art scene. Let's move on to our next chapter read through, which is questions. We know we love these kind of chapters, don't we, fellas? And we start off from Superior Galactus' point of view, but obviously he is in the middle of a dream. It's almost like an alternate view of his conversation with the Adeptus Physical, Candelau, the one with all the jars and shit, when we found that eaten body in front of Baez's quarters, and he asked him to inspect it, and he goes, partially eaten, this is a foot. And he's like, yeah, that's obvious. And then we have like a weird, we have a voice coming from behind while Artie is dancing and laughing.
Partially eaten, ha!
And apparently this voice is This is interesting. It says careless of me, and then I guess Glock that says, "How do you mean?" And then it said just to leave it there. But sometimes it is better to move quickly than to move carefully. A cripple. And then Glock is starting to remember that it's a dream. It's cold. He's starting to remember this. And then the voice tells Glock that perhaps he should go to the university and ask for advice. While you are there, you can ask them about the seed. And then that's it. And then we get Glock struggling to the bottom of the steps. He's, real time. He is back at the Adeptus Historical's office this time.
It's interesting to me that, this lines up in a very subtle way. Like, it's not openly said, but, like, ever since Salt basically said, "Fuck you, you little bitch," and he was like, "All right, fine then, I'll do my own thing," he is now, like, going to the university on his own, and, like, because fucking his dream said so, he's not doing what the Archlector is wanting him to do. Not really. He's just doing this for himself now, which is the first. It's the first time we've seen him take action on that thing he said, where even a guard dog needs a good pat on the head every now and then.
Yeah, and he is ostensibly like, quote unquote, like supposedly, doing what he's supposed to do, right? Which is look into Baez.
Right, sure,
But really, what he's like you said, he's more like interested about the seed at this point.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I would be. I mean, if there was something in my head that basically said, my bad, I left that corpse there.
He's like,
And that same voice has been telling me weird shit and telling me to find the seed. Eventually, you're going to snap and you're going to want to find the fucking seed.
Yeah, exactly. And I like how, he enters the Adeptus Historical's office, your namesake, Harrison.
What?
Who's there? And then Glocta's like, what happened to your crow? And it died. No. Oh, poor man. And he's sad about it.
Glocks is like history, you might say.
He's like, oh, too soon. Oh, and so
I remember you.
Yeah, and then he remembers that he asked about Baez. He's like, yeah, we've been over that. And then he asked Glocta if he brought the scroll back, the one about the fall of the Maker, and he said no, that the Archlector has it still. And the Adeptus says something interesting here. He says, I hear far too much about that man these days. Them upstairs are always carping on him. His Eminence this, His Eminence that. I'm sick of it. And Glocta kind of just, goes right over it. Doesn't even like pay any attention to it. He says, yeah, lots of changes. We have a new king. And then the Adeptus like, yeah, Guslav, right? He's like, you're 30 years late, but
I love that Glocks is just like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
He
I find it funny though that he does it seem like he's taken it the wrong way. He says like when he says upstairs, like he means like the people in charge, not literally the people upstairs.
Right, well, that's what Glocta's saying. Yeah, he's talking about changes upstairs.
I find it funny that he's just like completely missed what the Adeptus Historical is actually talking about, because we know like later in the chapter.
Right. Well, it's like that thing where something's like right in front of your face, and you just, because he already views the Adeptus Historical to be only lucid or at least competent in one thing, which is the past, analyzing the past or whatever. Whereas he's like, oh, he's barely lucid nowadays. There's no way he knows what's going on.
Oh,
which
is true, yeah.
Yeah.
Very good weakness of Glocta's that is very consistent throughout. Is he tends to underestimate the capacities of certain people. Like, he thinks, Glocta has a tendency, once he thinks he's got somebody figured out, he's got them figured out. He doesn't make exceptions, and that is he will if something happens, but like, we see him do this a lot, and I like how there's a consistency of him having this his little flaw in his investigations, where he overlooks an individual's actions because he thought, oh, I know they wouldn't do that kind of thing. He doesn't know what's going on. And he does this later on, too, so it's kind of interesting.
Yep. And so then he asks him about the seed, and I like this line. It says, the lined face did not move. The what? I can't tell if that meant like he was just dumbfounded, or if he was like, why is he asking about this? But either way, Glocta reminds him that it was mentioned in the scroll. He's like, oh, that thing, it's power, metaphors, blah, blah, blah. And he didn't believe the Glocta to be superstitious man, but whatever. And And then he said this one thing that is like he read once that rocks sometimes fall out of the sky. Some say they are fragments of the stars. Some say they're splinters from the chaos of hell, dangerous to touch and terribly cold. And that reminds Glockta of the dream. He's like, "Tell me about hell. Tell me about the other side."
I like how
And,
he feels like a cold breeze coming through
yeah,
the room.
yeah. And so then he tells him the story of Eus and the first law and how the world below and the world above were one, and then all that jazz, and then Glustrad being a dick, and then
Perhaps.
that he says something like, yeah, there were plenty of books here, old beautiful books from the time of the master maker, books on the other side, the divide between the gates and the locks, all this stuff. And then Galactic says there were books, and he goes, yeah, they've been missing from my shelves for some years now. And then Galactic asks, where are they? Why would they be missing? And then the historical's like, interesting that you of all people should ask that. Cut. We have Silber, the administrator, going, that's enough. That's enough, Superior. We will thank you for your visit. And then Glocta goes, enough. Excuse you. His Eminence will not be. And then who the fuck else comes trancing in, waltzing in, I'm sorry, but fucking Superior Goyle. And he is like, I know what His Eminence will or will not be. But Goyle's there and puts a stop to Glocta's, little investigation, which is interesting. And when Glocta goes upstairs, he noticed that the scene has changed. Not only did it get darker because it's evening now and everything, but there's a bunch of practicals, all over the place. I guess searching or setting up shop or something. He sees that giant northern practical from Goyle's stone splitter, stone shitter. Who obviously looks like he went through some how do I say this? Plastic
Stone
surgery?
splitting with his face.
Stone splitting with his face. Yeah.
Well, let's face it, it's a miracle the guy's fucking still alive.
It is a miracle.
Exactly. And then we
We
see
saw what Logan did to him. Fucking hell.
Yep. And we see Vitari there too, I guess back with Goyle. And she tells him that if he knows what's good for him, that he'll ask no questions at all about what's going on here. And she says, listen, if you're looking for traitors, maybe you should look in your own house first. And he goes, what is that supposed to mean? And then Vitari, I guess, as a sign of conciliation or something, because he saved her life over in Dagoska. She says, let me return the favor, get away from here, and stay away. That's the end of that little part. And then there's a time jump. But do you guys want to talk about this real quick?
I like that, his little thoughts in here, of course, like how he's like, Goyle's got his assortment of circus freaks back again. He's restocked, and I think it's funny that Goyle just gets all these wacky people. Like, you wonder if he goes, if there's like a convention or something for practicals, and he goes there and he's like, oh,
a convention.
Where the hell did he's been in Adua for this whole time? How the hell did he find these guys? Were they just off the street?
He puts an advert out in the Post.
He probably goes to Practicon or something.
Are you an exotic and violent person? We might have a job for you.
I also like, as well, with Glockter's thoughts, that he's now in correlation with him kind of breaking away from the Archlector's orders directly. He is also now got an open mind, and I like that he said those. I think, didn't he say these same words to the Abdessus Historical? An open mind is like that to an open wound.
Somebody else said that to Glocta.
Yeah, and then the Abdessus Historical says it to him too here, and he's like, yes, I
got it, yeah, whatever.
But beforehand, he was through the first and the second book, he's like, I don't know, I don't really think that stuff is true, even if he saw it. And now he's full on like, yeah, I did think that until Shickle, until Yulway, until the Eaters. It's just kind of it's interesting to see. We're seeing his actions play out with his change of mind.
Yeah, we see him kind of like just evolving and learning as he goes, which is good. Like some people are just stuck in their ways and others adapt.
I do find it interesting that Glocta always kind of tries to do the opposite of what people in power tell him to do, like kind of subconsciously.
He's got ADHD.
She's like, nah, I'm not doing that.
I was just gonna say he's like a kid in that sense. You tell him not to do something, he's gonna do it.
Yeah. Somebody's like, be close-minded, Glockton. It's like, maybe I won't.
Maybe I'll actually be considerate. Anyway, so yeah, we have a bit of a time jump then, and Glockta, he's just trying to get home now. He's tired. He's had a long day, a lot of walking steps. You know how much he hates stairs.
Oh,
And
God, yeah.
and then he opens the door, doesn't even pay attention, and next thing you know, he gets cracked in the face. His cane is snatched away. He's getting the shit beat out of himself, right? And then he's getting dragged bodily. Gets launched through the bathroom. His head cracks on the door, and then he sees a bath, and he's like, "Oh God, wait!" And then it's full of the dirty water from earlier in the morning. And next thing you know, he's getting waterboarded, and no one's even asking him any questions. Just letting him come up for breath a couple times, but just And he thought the third time, he was like, "Oh, that's it. I can't. I'm about to like start sucking into water," and then gets released and thrown on the floor, and he's out here vomiting, throwing up. And then we hear a woman's voice. "You are Glockta?" It's our girl Pharaoh. Of course, she wasted no time.
I wonder how she found him. You think she like followed him for a day, like figured out where he was at, followed him?
Maybe just asked around like who is a Glockta, and she probably maybe somebody told her.
What is a Glockta?
What is a Glockta? and then she squats in front of him. And she asks him again, you are Glockta? And he's like, I am Glockta. And then this is what we talked about earlier. She asks him, why are you watching me? And then he starts to deflect, and then she just cracks him right in the face. And then she goes, I will keep hitting you until you give me answers or you die. And then he says, thank you. And she goes, what? He says, I think you might have loosened my neck up a little bit for 2 years. And then he does his whole thing where he talks about for 2 years, he was a prisoner of the Gurkish, tortured, this, that.
Yada, yada.
Yeah, we get it.
What? So here, I have a side tangent here, if you guys don't mind.
That's all.
Whenever people talk about the, like, aspects of the Age of Madness with characters repeating their stories, it kind of makes me upset because, one, anytime these people talk in the entire series about their stories, it's always a traumatic experience, or they're trying to use it to manipulate people. And, like a certain character named Vic likes to repeat that she was in the camps. She was very traumatized by that, and she, she uses it to her benefit. She doesn't just say it just to say it. She always uses it to try to get what she wants. And, Glockta is doing the same thing here. But for some reason, people have an issue whenever people like Vic repeat her story, but not whenever Glockta repeats the story. Even though Glockta potentially repeats it just as much, if not more, about how he's never been tortured. His torture is way worse than anything you could do. It's just kind of interesting to see how the conscious mind, like our collective, thinks about these characters when it comes to trauma.
Okay.
You are absolutely right about that. I mean, people say that about Vic all the time. I'm guilty of it myself. I put my hands up and I'll say, yeah, I've said that before, but I think we could argue about that when we get to Age of Madness, right?
Yeah.
Let's argue about that.
I just thought it was an interesting little tangent there. So
yeah, no, I got you. I hear you. I like it. Good job, Harrison. Yeah, and so Glockta does the usual spiel of his past, and he goes, I am looking forward to dying. Every morning I wake up. Alive is a disappointment. Although, I don't know how else you would wake up. You can't wake up dead. But anyway.
Or can you?
I bet you can. And then he says, if you want answers, then he needs answers, And she goes, huh, you were a prisoner of the Gurkish. And he's like, yeah, they gave me all of this. So now they have something in common, right? And then... So there's questions, and he lets her go first, and she goes, why are you following me? And then he says, well, I'm watching Baez, and the two of you seem friendly, and it's hard to watch Baez, so I'm watching you. And then she tells him that he's no friend, that he promised vengeance, but all he has is lied. He goes, okay. And she goes, all right, ask your question, cripple. which is all right. And he asked,
Rude.
a bit rude. You just burst into this man's apartment, make him almost choke on his own shit water, and now you call him a cripple.
Ew.
Ma'am, etiquette, please. But he asks her, "What is the seed?" And she tells him, what Baez said, that it's a weapon of great power that can turn Shafa to dust. Thought it was at the edge of the world, hidden, but he was wrong, and he was not happy to be wrong. And then she asks him, "Why are you watching Baez?" And he goes, "Because he stole the crown and put it on a spineless worm." And then she goes, "There, we can at least agree." Yep. And Glockton just explains that there are people in the government who worries about the direction in which Giselle might take us or Baez might take us. Where is he taking us? And she says,
I don't know.
I don't know. Baez doesn't tell me anything. I do not trust him, and he does not trust me. Glockton says we agree there too. She says he planned to use the seed as a weapon, so she's guessing that he's gonna take you guys to war against Khalul and the Eaters. And then here Glockton has like a bit of a involuntary reaction, and she goes, "Oh, do you know these Eaters?" And he goes, "Yeah, I caught one in Dagaska, and I asked it questions." And it talked of righteousness and justice and war and sacrifice, and it said Baez killed his own master, and that the prophet Khalul still seeks vengeance. And then she's like, "Vengeance? Only I can have vengeance." And then he asks her, "What did they do to her?" And she just says, "They killed my people. They made me a slave. They stole my life." And Galactic goes, "Yeah, one more thing we have in common." And he's getting the feeling like his borrowed time is up. So, because she reaches down, she stands up, she reaches down, grabs his coat.
Body found floating in the bath.
In the bath. That's so funny. And his
That's
back
what
is,
I love
I
the
see
way
it.
Pacey says that too. He's like, it's like a question.
Bath? And he's getting ready to die. He even says, like, "I am ready." And then she goes, "For what?" "Here's your cane. And if you have more business with Baez, leave me out of it. I will not be so gentle next time." And basically, that's it. That's the end of the chapter.
I think that this interaction they have is like unusually wholesome for these two very savage individuals. They both have this common ground. Like, Thera immediately like chills out, and she finds out that he was also abused by the Gurkish. And she's like, "Oh, like a brother in arms." It's like the way she reacts to him, and she did that before. She's fought and helped people before who were also fighting the Gurkish. So it's kind of cool to see how they have this common ground of like similar, being screwed over by the same group of people. And it's nice that Pharaoh talks this out rather than immediately just killing Glockter for following her. She talks it out with him, tries to figure what he knows. And I also just think it's hilarious that Glockter is like getting waterboarded, and he's like, "Wow, I really don't like this." He's like he's very casual because he can handle it, but he's also like, "Well, it's working. I am not enjoying this." But in the end, they come to like a resolution that it almost seems like a side tangent, but it's really nice for him to tie up this loose end here, which is Pharaoh's in the group. No doubt, Glockter's gonna have to pursue that, and then they interact, and they're kind of like, "Oh, I guess we're kind of on the same side." So good luck out there. I think I'm gonna give this a 7 out of 9.
Ooh, okay. Like that, George.
Ooh. I was going to go for a 5, but
Really?
Harrison brings up some good points, so I'm going to bring it up to like a 6.
Interesting. I was gonna give it a 7 myself.
Ooh.
I enjoyed the chapter a lot. I did. But that's just me. What do I know?
And of course, as always, the dream sequence is great, and this is historical. I mean, how could I not?
Yeah, and I like that it calls attention to a certain incident that we'll talk about later on.
Yeah, there's a
But
bit of mystery going on in the university.
yeah, what's going on? What's going on? I mean the dream, but yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
both.
Both.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, they're connected. They are connected.
Dun, 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 dun. Anyway, alrighty. Well, thanks for that, fellas. Now we'll move on to our character spot, and I think it's time, fellas. Who wants to take this over?
Oh, what? Sorry.
George, you don't have to. I'll do it. I just didn't want you to feel like you weren't able
Sorry,
to
I'm
speak.
not feeling great today. To be
Okay,
honest with you.
I got you. I got
All
you.
right, cut this out. Go ahead.
Our character spot is Severod. We've been holding off to do him for this chapter, specifically because he talks about his birds.
His boydies.
Or the chapter before, I mean.
Right. The one where Farrah whoops his ass.
Yeah.
Did we notice that for today's episode, Farrah was just straight up whooping ass and all like it was all Inquisition ass.
Inquisition ain't nothing compared to Pharaoh.
No. We learned that from the blade itself. But anyway, practical Severard, because he talked about his birds, and we just saw how young he was when Farrah ripped off his mask.
Yeah.
Right.
And with
That's true.
context later, we know that Severod is like maybe my age. Maybe. He's
Right?
like
Is it
he's
20
like 21 or whatever,
I thought he was like-
22.
Yeah, I thought he was like 23. I don't know. I don't think we get a concrete. Do we get
Well,
concrete?
we get one very close. He's stated to be like in his late teens, like very young adult, like 17, 18, in Sharp Ends. Whenever we get like a year flashback,
Oh,
and it's only like a
right.
year before, and yeah, it's may have been a couple years, but I mean, he can't be older than me. I mean, he's probably like 21 or something, you know.
Mm.
So it's kind of crazy to think about how young he is and how ruthless he can be.
Mhm.
And you know, he doesn't have a wife or kids or family like Frost, but he does have like a
Yeah. That's his birds.
It's bad.
it's a very humanizing aspect that he's taking care of some animals, because he likes them. Like that's something he lives for. Why should I keep you alive? Because someone needs to take care of my birds. Kind of sweet.
Aw, pobre. I wonder what kind of birds they are.
Pigeons.
Are they pigeons? They're
Pigeons,
pigeons, right?
He
could
lives in
be.
the city, right? He's not going to be getting like songbirds or anything, right?
You
Yeah,
don't know. You don't know.
He's getting. We know that doves come from the south.
Pigeons are doves.
Yeah.
Well, I wasn't saying like I wasn't saying he can't have taken care of pigeons. I was trying to say like, and
I'm just
the
being
kingdom,
semantics. I'm sorry.
the animal kingdom.
There's just two
We
different.
need to ask Joe exactly.
Mhm.
This is when we get him on. We're gonna have to ask him what kind of birds.
Yeah, we're gonna ask
Severod
the hard hit,
Severod have.
the hard hitting questions. What kind of birds does Severod had?
I need to know. Why does he live?
Oh Lord.
Also, I also like that Severod is just like he's pretty fucking capable for practical. He's the one who gets all the information.
Yeah.
He seems to be pretty proficient with the flat bow. He's
Mhm.
ruthless, follows orders. He's the epitome of the well-rounded practical. He should write a book on how to be practical. I think he would be very good at it.
What the fuck?
Oh God. All right. Do you want to add anything else to this character spot that's already went off the rails?
Well, we're doing it now, but obviously there's a little bit left for his character arc.
Yeah.
So I'm sure we'll talk about it when it comes up. But for now, he just seems like he's a reasonably loyal. He's not going to put himself in harm's way for his job,
Mhm.
but he'll go into his job to the best of his ability and
Yeah.
bit of pride in your work,
Right. And he won't die for the job. He'll take a hit, but he won't die for the job.
No chance.
Yeah. Who would? Really?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Probably Glockton.
Yeah, I think he would die just for the fun of it.
He would die for the truth.
The truth.
The truth. It's more probably because it gets him off or something. Who fucking knows about the truth? Anyway, are we done with the character spot?
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. So let's move on to our third and final chapter read through, the fourth day. As we kind of figured out by now, we're talking about the battle in the high places, and the boys are having a grand old time, aren't they? They're fighting the dudes out from the Crinner, right? The Crinner.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The savages to the savages.
Right. So Bethod's still working his way through the cannon fodder, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So sending in, maybe he probably exhausted the whole Shanka supply, and now he's going on to the east of the Krina bastards. And yeah, it's quite it's a lot, right? You guys want to talk about this? Yeah, I asked you to help. Yes.
Yeah, he's basically they're just having he's fighting this big old Easterner. He's like, this is a big one. And I like how Joe always anytime there's a big Easterner or a big Shanka or a big guy, though he's always like, this was a big one. This practical, this Easterner, this every single time. It's just kind of always anytime he says it, you're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have like some kind of like boss fight.
He always goes into so much detail with the descriptions as well. Like that's a full paragraph just about like Logan thinking about how this guy got acne scars and shit. And it's just like, what the fuck?
He doesn't use CeraVe, you know.
Yeah.
He just gets in a fight with him here, and he's fighting some other guys, and he always gives the names to the different fighters too. Like I feel like one description of a person, like big nose,
Ugly,
or big bastard, ugly,
red hair.
yeah. And they're like, oh look, they're mounting the wall now with ladders. They probably the Shanker were fighting, so the Easterners built ladders. So now they're mounting the wall, and they get he's asking for a pole, and everybody's pretty tensed up. He's like, bring me a pole, and he's like, what? Carl is like, what do you mean? And he's like, bring me the fucking pole.
Yeah.
And they get a pole, and they push it off, and they're just kind of fighting, and they've been doing it for 4 days now, and it feels like they've been there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh god, yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah. And he's taking a little bit of a break. He was thinking about maybe going over to Dow's side of the wall to help out, but then he realizes that he's needed at his his part. So he's like, all right, I'm gonna wait for these cocksuckers to come. And then we have a bit of a time break, and not time break. We just jump from perspective from Logan to the dog man, and now they have to deal with the people at the gate, right?
And Rain, yeah.
Yeah, and Rain. Can't forget about that.
Yeah,
because
the conditions just getting worse and worse and worse for the guys, aren't they?
Yep.
For the gang.
Mm-hmm.
You got a bunch of Easterners just trying to pry through the gate, and it's already kind of falling apart.
Right. So then he just gets everybody that's in the tower to kind of just aim straight down and loose all their arrows. Not too accurate because of the rain, but sometimes you need quantity more than quality, and it did the job. It got them away from the gate, right?
Yeah.
And then we go back to Logan's perspective, and they're just going through it. They're just all going through it.
I mean, yeah, he's just like a crack and as loud as the skyfall, and he's like, he doesn't even know what it is. He's just like, I don't have time to fucking think about this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just chaos. The wall like kind of collapses at one point. Fuck me, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's one of those fight scenes that are amazingly written, but like going through it in our version is never like as cool unless Jeff is really excited about it. We usually can't describe it very well. So
I'm still recovering, people, from 4 days of hard drinking, so you're gonna have to excuse me. I promise for the 7th day I will be up to form.
You better be, you bastard. So they are all it's in pure chaos, but he does see Shivers like struggling. He's an Eastern's trying to push him over the wall, and so he runs over there. He's fighting along the way, and he basically saves him. He pulls him back up, and he was like, Shivers is like looking at him like, oh, I can't believe this motherfucker saved me. And then Logan's like, oh, behind you, quick! And then they turn around, they start fighting again, and it's just nonstop. It's like a whole couple pages of them fighting back and forth. And
I mean, it's like you say, we cannot do it justice. Like
we cannot, but it's exceptional. And just as the Easterners seem to almost be pushing through the boys on the wall, everyone's getting pushed back, falling off. Maybe some of them are running away back to the behind. Krummick's boys come running up, and they all swarm over the wall and push the Easterners off, like in a big old tie, which is what they're there for. It's to push them back if they start getting pushed back themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they finally push them back, and they're like, "Yeah, you guys can take the wall tomorrow, then, right?"
Yeah,
Talking
fuck
to
him.
Crummick, like, "Fuck you, it's Jesus." And
I love how there's still that like little camaraderie there. Like they're not completely broken yet. They're still like.
Mhm.
Ugh.
they
And there
don't
is
they
one
can
bit
be
that I
broken,
want
right?
to. There is a little bit that I want to talk about before we move on to the aftermath. Is
Uh-huh.
that when Dogman, I think it's Dogman who describes the Easterners, because I was thinking about this the other day, where why are they like the savages when the people in the Union think that the regular Northerners are savages?
Mhm.
And it's when he says that these Easterners that have no respect for the dead. And I
That's a
think
good point.
that's one of the things that archaeologists look for if they're looking for a sign of actual civilization. Like they look for burial sites and things like that.
Oh, okay.
I
Interesting.
think that's that might be a little interesting anthropological factoid there.
Right, and
Yeah,
then
I
also,
never even thought about that.
yeah, and you know what is also probably like from Logan's perspective, when Crummick's people fight the guy, the Krina, the whatever, the Easterners,
Yeah.
he says savages against savages. So it's like uh it's maybe it's lack of like for their time contemporary clothing, painted faces, uh
Mm.
necklaces of finger bones and shit like that, so kind of similar to
Yeah.
what you're saying, yeah, about like the lack of respect for the dead. And I guess that's where like the lines between the different levels like of class, I guess, are just there in the north, in terms of like
Mm.
we might live in huts, but at least we wear a shirt and we bury people.
Yeah.
Mhm. Aw.
It's pretty cool. I'm glad that you pointed that out, George, because that the respecting of the dead is actually very, very important to the Northmen too. It's not just like the standard like human thing. Like the Norse culture is based around honoring the dead and acknowledging that death is always present.
Yeah.
Um, and
Mhm.
it's interesting that west of the Krina, it's like this is like it's not maybe not a religion, but it's all a I guess an ideology. It's all the way of life for them to think of death in that way. And so
Mm.
you're right. It makes total sense that the Krina bastards they don't respect the dead, and that it makes them doubly so like that. West what makes them savages because that's what the
Mm.
North is kind of built around
Yeah.
philosophically.
Mhm.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, no, for sure, for
I'm
sure.
glad I could contribute something to this episode.
Oh my
George,
God!
you
You
do
always
more than enough.
contribute.
You watch your mouth, Archlector. You watch it. But yeah, so then we get to the aftermath, right? Toll's like, "Hey, Chief, we beat the shit out of them." He's like, "Yeah, but we also lost a decent amount of our guys too. Some, what 30 of their men, I think he said. I could be wrong. But
Yeah, 30 says.
so yeah, 30, right? And then they're just wondering like, where the fuck is the Union? Jesus Christ, because they're taking their sweet time here. Um, but then then we have a time jump and a switch to perspective again. This time it's Logan, and it's at night. Everyone's by the fires. Toll and Dow are like shooting the shit. Apparently, Logan can hear it down the way, but Logan's just kind of by himself. He's not really. He's kind of feeling more isolated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he almost lost his cool there in the fight too.
Yeah, he almost
Forgot to
did.
mention that. Yeah.
Yep. He almost went full bloody nine, and he was like, "No, no, 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 please, no." And then the dog man comes up, and he asks him if he thinks that Bethard will come tonight. Because Bethard likes to do surprise attacks, and Logan's like, "Yeah, maybe not tonight though. I think he'll wait till we got we're a little bit more worn down." And
Mm.
they start talking about like Carleon, like it was always this tough, and you know, and even Dogman said that at that time around Carleon, he was
It bothers him that they're fighting for Bethel, but they don't really believe in what he has to what he has to gain.
yeah. And then he was like, "Why didn't you say anything?" And then Dogman's like, "Would you have listened?" And he goes, "Yeah, I guess not." uh, yeah. And then
That's a great bit of introspection from Logan there. He doesn't even think about it. He's like, yeah, no, probably not.
yeah, probably not. And then he asks him, does Logan think that we're gonna live through this? And Logan's like, maybe, not so sure, but we'll see. And then at that moment, Shivers comes up, and he has a bandage around his head and everything, and he's says hi to Dogman, and Dogman's like he's very complimentary of Shivers. He's glad that he came over. We all are. He gave Logan a long look, all of us. And then he goes, I think I might try and get a rest for a minute. I'll see you boys when they come again. And then I bet you he's probably like, behave.
Yeah, no fighting now.
No
I do like
fighting."
that. I do like that one of the monikers of Dogman, like having that respect and being the chief, and he does this even later on. Is how he always gives these looks to people, like, "Hey, watch yourself. You know what's right. Yeah, I'm looking at you. Stop it."
Yeah. Mhm. I'm watching you, buddy. And then, and Logan says here, because it's just him and Shivers alone, and they're staring at each other. And Logan says, like in his internal monologue, that he probably should have got his hand near a knife and keep an eye out for like sudden moves, but he was just too tired. He just didn't give a shit. So he just goes, "What's up, man?" And then Shivers took a while, but he was like, he said, that if he had been in his place, in Logan's place, that he would have let those Easterners kill him today. And Logan says that a few years ago, he's sure he would have. And Shivers asks what changed. And here Logan thinks about it for a minute, and then he says that he's just trying to be better than he was. Is that enough? And what else can Logan do? And Shivers here is struggling here. He says he wanted to say he is taking his time, and he says that he's grateful that he saved his life today. He knows it, and he just doesn't know really how to go about thanking Logan. And Logan, I guess in this part, Logan did a good thing here. He says it's nothing what a man should do for his own. That's all. I owe you a lot more. And I know that, and I can never pay what I owe you. And Shiver says no, but it's some kind of start as far as he's concerned. And he's about to walk away, but you can tell he's still angry, and he's kind of like not even really looking at Logan. He just says, it ain't ever as simple as it as a man is just good or bad. Not even you, not even Bethod, not nobody. And Logan just says, nope, it's never that simple. It's
Logan
all a
basically,
matter of where you stand.
Logan basically reads out the theme of the book.
Yeah.
Basically.
And I'm
And
not
that's
saying
how
that's
we-
bad writing. Oh, that's okay. You can do that sometimes. It's fine.
Yeah.
It really is. It's a great moment. This conversation has major implications for the understanding of Logan's character. It's almost as if Joe is kind of meta reminding you that, like, yeah, Logan's been a nice guy. Obviously, these people up here thinks he's a piece of shit, but we have to remember he's just a human being, and it's not one way or the other. It just is what it is.
Yeah.
And at the same time, as him doing that, it's pretty brilliant because this conversation has serious ramifications for Shivers on a personal level. And it also is ironic that Logan says these things, so he's been so defensive because it feels like growth. But we still got a little ways to go with Logan here, and it's very interesting conversation because of that.
Yeah, and like you said, it's all a matter of where you stand. And look, all it takes is like one specific POV or whatever, and we could be rooting for Bethod. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I do root for Bethod, but
Yeah, Team Bethod. Bethod was not wrong.
Hashtag
Bethod. Hashtag Bethod was right.
Hashtag Bethod did nothing wrong.
And plus, he's got a pretty cool standard, so whatever. Alrighty, so Harrison, what would you rate that chapter?
It's a big action chapter, and it's pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
And I really do like that conversation at the end, though. But it does also feel like I think I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 9.
Ooh,
I think it's really good. I really like the ending of this chapter with the Shivers and Logan thing, but it's mostly an action chapter and not really a decisive one either. It's just kind of keeping you up to date with what's going on, making sure you know how worn out they are. It's part of the story. It's written well, but it's not like some amazing.
Interesting. I like the chapter a lot. I'm struggling between 7 or 7 and a knuckle. Just because like I said, it's full of action. You see that he's really coming into his own, Joe, with the writing of like switching to perspectives.
Yeah.
During a battle. I like the tension right? We get that tension where like our hearts like almost came through our asses when we thought the Bloody Nine was about to make an appearance.
Yeah.
And then we have some comedy relief when Logan's like, "You want the fucking wall? Take the fucking wall." We get some toll. And then the whole thing with Shivers, that dynamic. Oh man, I think I'm gonna give it a 7 and a knuckle.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. George.
All right. It is a hard one because as much as I like Joe's writing with his fight scenes, sometimes I do kind of skip over a little bit of these sometimes
Okay.
because it's very long. It's a lot of smashy fun time, you know.
And we
And-
love that here at the Circle
Yeah, we
of
do
Horror.
love the smashy fun time, you know, but I feel like with Dumbreck, like you can get a lot more feel for like what's actually happening. Whereas here, it's a little bit more. And don't get me wrong, the chaos is like it's intentional, isn't it? It's meant to show how
Yeah.
desperate they are, and I think that's really good. It's a lot there for
I hear that.
just to get that point across. So I'm going to give it a 4.
Oh,
Fair enough.
Okay. Interesting. Alrighty. Well, that's the scores for that's our ratings for this chapter. Thank you, fellas. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support does mean a lot to us.
Join us next time as we cover The Perfect Couple and The Seventh Day.
And make sure you give us a follow on social media and check out the website at circleoftheworld.com.
And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or any podcast app that you use. And please make sure to rate and review this podcast. Thank you all again for listening.
Body found floating in the bath?